and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'ma put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Only Friends podcast. And I'm here with my favorite yum-yums, Mr. Guapito and one Landon Tice.
Skeleton crew is here.
Wow, you got a camera today, Guap.
Yes, sir.
Love to see it.
If you didn't have a camera, and we have so many in here. If he didn't have one, it would be like kind of disrespectful.
Well, he's been not cutting to himself as of late.
3 hours of sleep doesn't make you very handsome.
I understand.
You're handsome anyways.
I understand.
Yeah,
Have you
buddy.
only been sleeping 3 hours?
Yeah, like usually when I work these events, it usually takes me like a day or two to get used to just falling asleep in the middle of the day. I worked graveyard for 11 years. This one was tough. I'll get home and I'm like trying to go to sleep and it just ain't happening. And then when I do fall asleep, it'll be like 5 p.m. and then I got to get up at 8. So
Are you done, or is today your last day?
today's my last day.
Okay.
Yeah.
It really is crazy. Like my vision with these glasses, looking at this screen, makes the screen so much clearer. But without the glasses, everything's so blurry. Like so blurry. Where my vision's not even that bad, but with the lights.
I just love that you're so in your own little world. Just
Like,
you know,
dude, look how many
all
lights
about,
are. It's not all about me, but like, look how many lights are here. Look how many lights are like shining down. Look, I get the like Guapo's had a tough time. Guapo and Turtle. Turtle's been out of commission for the past 2 weeks.
I promise you, Turtle's been sleeping just fine.
Turtle's been gone.
I just find it hilarious. Like, we've been doing this for 3 years now, and I don't know that you've actually ever partaken in a conversation without just like abruptly shifting it to like whatever thought is on your mind right now. Like, oh my God, glasses. They make your vision sharper. Who knew?
I mean, a lot of people knew, but they don't actually do anything about it. I'm just still in shock, man.
The revelations that we are we're privy to hearing in real time. I mean, priceless. This is the gold that people tune in for, Landon.
This and sports ball.
You're goddamn right.
All right, I'll pull a Landon. When's the last time you were under the knife, Matthew? Is it your appendectomy?
No, I think it was my ACL surgery, but they were within 6 months of one another.
Oh,
so I've had surgery twice. You know, it's funny. I had never gone to the hospital for anything until my appendectomy. I mean, I guess
basically the same for me too. I had my tonsils out when I was a kid, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I had a compound fracture on my pinky when I was like 15. So I went to an ER, but like it never escalated past that. They just popped it back in place, sent me home. So I don't know if that counts or not, but like the appendectomy, obviously I had to have emergency surgery, and then the ACL, I had scheduled surgery. I don't think I've been in a hospital as a patient otherwise.
Good stuff.
You're a little apprehensive about tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Did they even knock you out?
I think it's the thought of like going under. Yeah, you have to like get out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out's nice.
I don't know, but the way you put it sounds not so bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, just drift off to Never Land and never
and
return.
If it's my time, it's my time. And I just go to sleep forever.
What can you do, man?
Yeah.
What better way to go? I mean, like if you could draw it up, you know, it's like heart attack, brain aneurysm,
I think it's
car crash.
I think it's like 1 in a million that something bad happens to you.
Under general anesthesia?
Yeah, it's some really, really low probability.
I like those odds.
So if you wanted to, just pick a number 1 through 100 like 4 times, and if you hit the number 4 times, just be like, you know what, I don't want the surgery. Like, it's not my time.
I'm running bad.
I'm not sure.
I saw a thing once where it was
is.
like all-cause mortality. It was like a chart of like different ways like most people die of cancer, like 1 in 7, and like car accident is like 1 in like 1,000 or something like this, and anesthesia was below those because it's
of course.
It's like scaled in like micro morts, like micro mortalities. So every 1,000 or something is 1 micro mortality. So I think anesthesia was like 10 or something, and maybe the micro was like 1 million.
Okay.
It was like 10 divided by a million. So
Yeah.
1 in 100K or something like this. Very unlikely. If it's your time, it's your time, you know?
That's the real beauty of it, in my opinion. It's like, what's there to be scared of? You'll never know. You know, you don't get.
That's true.
You don't get to experience dying.
You're just
just dead. You know what I mean? It's like
the only people that get affected is us. Who's gonna run the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. We have to have Conrad do
I feel
this.
so bad for you guys. I know. Sorry.
Of course, but it's like, you know, you don't have the 90-second descent that you have in an airplane where you know full well you're about to die, and there's a part of your brain that's like just lit up with oxytocin and a bunch of other chemicals that suddenly puts a bunch of hopium in you that like, I'll survive it. No, you won't.
It's funny. We were having a delirious conversation about this. We take walks to try to wake up, and we were talking about different ways to go. Apparently, if you drowned, it's like a euphoric thing, that there's some sort of
you starve
when you drown.
starve the brain of oxygen, and it sends you off into all kinds. But
It is, but before that, it's very, very
it's torture.
sad. It's
Yeah, that's
very,
gotta be
very
super scary.
I don't like these conversations,
Yeah,
man.
let's move on.
But
Sorry.
but that's the thing though with the anesthesia. It's like you don't know. There's no fear.
That's the biggest thing. It's the dream. You know, there's no scenario where you consciously recognize. I mean, at least I'm suspecting. I don't know. Maybe your subconscious is at work here while you're under, and
you wouldn't know. It's subconscious.
yeah, but like, you know, maybe like, I don't know, maybe just like start screaming, let me out, you know, whatever. Maybe you have like some night terrors or something. I had a fucked up dream last night. Actually, now that I think about it, it was fucked up. I was thinking that I like died or was getting chased or something like that, but that wasn't what happened at all. I slept with one of my friend's wives, but not like really. Like, it wasn't a friend that like I know. It was a made up friend and a made up wife. Like, there's no face to them, basically. But I woke up like feeling extremely guilty as I'm swaddled by 4 dogs and, you know, nice and tucked in. But no, like that's the thing, is like, I can't think of another death where there isn't at least some moment of recognizing that you're dying, outside of like, I don't know, I guess maybe like, even if you have a heart attack in your sleep, you probably still are like, you know, when people say they died in their sleep, pretty unlikely, I think.
Yeah, because
they
not being
fucking
able to
woke
breathe,
up.
your chest is just beating out of your chest.
Yeah,
like,
like they woke up, they just didn't make it out of their bed, right? Like, this is the only one where it's, I mean, this is the equivalent of, what's it called? Like assisted suicide? Yeah, just put me under, baby.
He makes compelling points, because these are compelling points.
Yeah, just get the fucking lump sucked out, man. You're either going to be happier or dead.
Yeah. And one less lump. So.
That, for me, that's the big thing. Is like, I have no fear of death. Like, being dead is a silly thing to be fearful of, because you don't get to experience it.
I'm not scared of being dead. I'm scared of the moments just before.
Exactly. Dying is what you should fear, because you experience dying, and that seems awful.
I think that is what most people fear. Most people don't really fear not being around.
I don't think people fear 6 weeks leading up to.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely dreadful.
Like a death by cancer, where you actually don't even die from the cancer necessarily. You actually die from like starvation and not being able to consume liquid, and you know, it's like, you know, it's such a brutal way to go.
I pray by the time that all of us go, that assisted bye-bye is
we should just all have, like, you know,
we do
a checkout date. Yeah, there you go. Get us on the dog plan, you know? Like, go to the doctor and they're like,
tough day at work today, doc. I'm ready.
I gotta tell you, man, I think it's time. Bring in the family.
Have a party.
We'll put you down next week. You know? I don't know, man. I see a lot of upside to general anesthesia. Like, if I was old, and I know a lot of surgeons and whatnot won't do this because their record is like they try to have like an unblemished record or whatever, so they won't take high risk patients often.
Right.
But like, let's say I broke my hip at 80. and they're like, you need a hip replacement. I'd be like, okay, but you might die under general anesthesia 15% of the time, or like under the knife, whatever.
Make it
right?
100.
And it's like, yeah, okay, so fucking what? They're like, oh, well, that's too risky. We're not going to perform the surgery. It's like, too risky for who? I'm 80.
Right.
I either need a hip or I need to die. I don't want to be doing something in between.
It's the more this is what people tune in for, the mortality conversation.
Right.
Is like when my grandfather passed, but before then he would like tell me, and he was like in his late 70s, he'd be like, I'm old, man. And I used to like not get it, because when you're 8, you're like, what do you mean you're old? Like, we can go play basketball at the park. Like, that's what we do. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes it's
getting old's a bitch.
You're ready,
I'm ready already.
No, you're not.
No.
You pretend to be ready.
I'm not ready.
Yes, you are.
Oh, I'm not ready for something gruesome to happen.
Yeah,
I'm not prepared for that.
Nobody's ever prepared for that.
Exactly. But like, if
that's the fear. The fear is something like
if they turn the switch off tomorrow, like, okay, life was good.
That's true. Life is good.
I just ordered this thing called a death portfolio. And
Great.
Wow. We're taking some turns today.
it's this pamphlet or like book that has like sectioned off like sub I don't know, there's like folders in there, and there's like different like labels and all this other stuff.
Give it to your friends.
Yeah, so basically like you write down all your passwords, you write down
I did this last night.
you write down like,
oh my gosh, bro, it's 1 in a billion chance of going away.
Right.
Listen, I got a bunch of I'm in the crypto game now. My sisters don't know how to use
exactly
like my
seed
phrases.
Yeah, exactly. You got to write down all these explanations and stuff. I'm gonna mail it to my nephew and just say, hey, when the time comes, open this book and enjoy your riches.
Does that mean he's gonna move into the house?
No, he'll probably sell the house. Nobody wants to live in Vegas.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, that's not true, but like people are normal people.
What's he gonna do here?
Right.
How is he?
He's good. Lives with his girlfriend. He just finished what's it called? What's it called when you shadow somebody?
Intern. Shadowing.
Shadow?
I mean,
it is shadowing.
It's called those things, yes, but there's a more
like an intern.
There's a more I don't want to say pretentious term for it, but a more
like understudy.
Yes, thank you. He just finished a barber understudy. Barbership.
Is that what it's called? A barbership?
I don't know.
Yeah.
They have to take a fucking test.
I thought it was esthetician.
That's for a different thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't.
Esthetician is like face stuff, right?
Oh, I don't know. You could have definitely sold me that it meant cutting hair.
Pretty sure
or
esthetician
beautician.
is face stuff.
They have to take a like.
Dude, hair school is like a long.
It's a very rigorous
time.
test.
Yeah. It also takes a long time.
And I guess like the barber one is worse because you need to be able to do everything that a beautician does, plus be able to do like shaves. And shit
esthetician,
like that.
licensed skincare professional who provides cosmetic treatment and services for maintaining appearance of health of skin, facials, hair removal, makeup application, and other treatment. So like face and skin stuff. Skin doctor.
There you have it.
Barber is hair doctor.
Yes. He's a hair doctor now. All right, let's get
a turn
into
for Eric, by the way. He was a mechanic.
He just likes working with his hands, and I think he likes like puzzles of sorts. You know what I mean? Not that like cutting hair is solving a puzzle or putting a car back together, but you know what I mean? Like it's a beginning and an end.
Yeah, you're finding
you're reshaping something.
Finding the statue in the marble.
Yeah, kind of. The problem is he gets very bored.
He does get very bored.
So like I think he would just prefer to be doing all of these things as a hobby rather than changing oil or giving someone a fade.
He kind of just like wants to have a bunch of different skills and like just hop around from time to time.
The problem is that he's not good at the things that make you wealthy in those industries, which in today's day and age is just like basically social media. You know, to be like a barber who's capable of charging like $70 to $100 a cut, it's not about being the best at your skill. It's about marketing yourself the best and then, you know, getting a clientele list. And he just has no interest in that shit.
Poker's the opposite.
He just wants to go hunt.
Poker's the opposite. Market yourself as the worst and you got seats forever.
You ain't lying, brother.
I mean,
you ain't lying.
That's if you have money wired to the casino or not.
Well,
is that what Sean did?
So he said he was going to wire $1 million. which I think everybody knew that was nonsense. He sent 150, and I think he made it about a quarter of the stream, maybe closer to half. It didn't go well. It did not go well for the Yum.
Didn't look good, cuz. But he did get unlucky with the 10 versus Jacks against E-Fan. So sometimes it happens, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I could see where, you know, sitting 150k deep in a 25-50 game, running 10s into Jacks would probably cost you the lot.
I've only recently caught wind of Sean Perry. Has he always been an eccentric guy?
Oh, that's a very kind word. He's been a douche from day one.
Okay.
Just absolutely an insufferable clown of a human being. I've told this story a bunch, but like, so his timeline, first of all, is like way off. He got into the big game at Aria Ivy Room like 2018-ish, maybe 2019, somewhere around there. And he did not last very long. Like, he was already pretty much not playing by the time COVID hit, but he would play sporadically here and there. Nobody had any idea where his money came from outside of he had a couple big tournament scores where he clearly ran it from, you know, very small amounts to a couple million at most, maybe. But if he's at all claiming that he won in the big game, he's fucking lying through his teeth. Like, he got seats because he was a whale. And, you know, you could say the same about me, fine, but I actually made money in my stint there, where I'm very confident he didn't. And this is the reason why. There was a day where, I've told this story a bunch, but I'll retell it now. There was a day where we were playing...
Is this the IQ one?
No.
Oh,
that one's so legendary. But it was very similar to that. So Sean had been getting like consistent seats. And obviously I knew that like he was a quote unquote pro. So it's like, I didn't want anybody to like have the rug pulled over their eyes. Like guys like Bob Bright, Dr. Sean, you know, and others, Bobby Baldwin, etc. Like, they're not out there. They don't have their finger to the pulse of the game. You know, they don't have their ear to the ground. So they don't necessarily know who's faking it and who's actually going to be like good action or whatever. So Sean comes in and he's blasting right away. So I don't really say anything. He's just annoying, whatever. But I noticed that like some days he comes in and he plays like relatively tight, pretty good, and like, you know, really tries to book a win. And there was this day where he was kind of like playing reasonably well. And by reasonably well, I just mean like, you know, not torching it. And he gets in a flip situation, a flip where it's Queens versus Ace King. And I can't remember which side of it was on, but it doesn't matter. And he's just making this wild over the top claim that Ace King, like it doesn't matter. Like Ace King's going to win. The numbers be damned. And he's just going on and on and on about how Ace King has a little bit more equity than Queens. And it's so insulting to the recreationals because it's like, whether they know that Queens is actually a favorite or not doesn't really matter. In their minds, like at worst, they at least know it's a coin flip. But, you know, Queens is like, if you're talking about on the margins, Queens is a substantial favorite. It's like, depending on suits and whatnot, it's like maybe 53-47-ish. And you can make a lot of money on 3% edge. You know, it means something. So Sean is like going way out of his way, and it's so performative, and all these theatrics going on. I'll put $1 million down on Ace King. Who wants the side action? Like, just, you know, doing exactly what he does on Twitter.
It's 56-43 for what it's worth.
Okay, so yeah,
if it's no suits and no suits.
Right, yeah. I think like that's best case. I think worst case is like 53-47. Anyway, you know, 3 to 6% is a lot of fucking edge in a game where you're pushing small edges, right? It's just a lot of edge in general. Like if you're putting in high volumes of bets.
Even if you get both suits covered, it's 56-43. It's like 56.1.
So it didn't
43.
change?
No, but Ace King suited might be a little different.
Okay. Anyway, all right. Yeah, fair. So there, it's even more egregious than I thought. So he's going way over the top about all this stuff, and I'm basically I couldn't take it anymore. I just said shut up. I just couldn't take it because it's like they're pandering to him, and I'm like, what is going on? Sean, just shut the fuck up. Just shut up and sit down. So the hand ends. He goes to the bathroom, and I've been playing with these guys for like 6 or 7 years at this point, so I have a pretty decent report. And I like look around, And it's like Robo, JRB, Dr. Sean, Bob Bright, Bobby Baldwin. And I look at them and I go, why are you guys pandering to this idiot? Like, you know he knows that queens are a favorite there. Like, why are you letting him demean you like this and try to sell you on the notion that, because it felt like he was hustling in some sort of regard. And they all started laughing really hard. And they go, what do you want us to do? Stop inviting him? And I go, okay, fair point. When you put it that way, like, okay, fine. So that has been his shtick from day one. Like, just play the role of the biggest idiot in the room. And like, he never really understood that no one liked him and nobody cared that he was presenting himself as smart or dumb. They only cared about the fact that like his chips were in play and he seemed to punt them off quite frequently. If he had started winning a bunch, he would have just lost the seat. Like, that's just the nature of the game.
Because he's the trifecta now, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, you can't be obnoxious, young, brash, and win.
Be good, yeah.
Right. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, eventually, like, COVID hit. That game died off. Perry rode off into the sunset, started sports betting, and now all of a sudden he's coming back.
He played some Poker Go stuff for a while.
I thought I saw him at a Triton
1 year.
too.
John Perry had like a 6 sun run year.
Yeah, he had 1 year. It's funny. We said it was a sun run, but it was largely just because we had such low expectations of him.
Well, I mean, he cross-booked Kerry in a bunch of stuff and won a ton.
Yeah, he finished third in the PGT that year.
Yes.
I think. But it was like, for 4 or 5 million in scores, which now when we see somebody have a sun run year like Ike did a couple years ago for like 13 million, you know what I mean? It's a great year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to demean like that. That's a fantastic fucking year. It actually might have been for less though, because his lifetime earnings is 6.
He was like the best all-in player that year. It was absurd.
Yeah, it really was absurd. And yeah, he might have buried Kerry in the process, but
student debt Kerry can't be buried.
He'll be just fine.
I had to pay some student debts off. That really messed me up. Gave him money straight to Kerry.
Yeah, I don't think that's who it went to. But,
probably not.
But sure. But yeah, anyway, long story short here, they played 100, 200 yesterday. He lit 150K on fire, as best I can tell. Very similarly to the way he used to. It looks as though the angle here is to try to get into the $1 million game. I don't think anyone's going to say no, but much like Keating, I think if he gets in the $1 million game, you're going to see a different version of Perry in that game than you do in the smaller stuff. Not that I think the lineups that they'll give him, he's going to be winning in, but there's that. But he did run his mouth again on Twitter. I refuse to reply to the tweets because I don't want to amplify his profile, but we can talk all we want here because what the fuck is he going to do? Nobody's going to go from here to following him on Twitter or anything like that. He claims that somehow I'm ducking him in spite of the fact that he's the one who got banned from Poker Go Studio. I would happily play him any stakes heads up anytime that he likes. So,
but he's really hell-bent on wanting it streamed, right? Or having
is, which I don't give a fuck about.
Meaning that you'll do it at a different venue?
I mean, I would, if it's not inconvenient to me, I would play on stream. I would just much rather play him for 20, 30, 40, 50 hours live. What I won't do is play him online. That for sure I won't do. I don't trust the kid enough to play him high stakes in an environment where he could just be cheating me. But I'll happily play him live anywhere that he wants. And, I don't know what this whole yum thing is. Rob Kuhn kind of said it best. Nobody says yum. Stop making it a thing. But, if you don't want to be a little bitch and you want to play some real stakes, let me know. I'm in. On the flip side of things, when it comes to online poker, we saw some pretty monumental change here over at ClubWPT Gold. Looks like Polk got his boycott through, if you will.
Speaking to the powers that be themselves.
Yeah, I don't know how much influence he had over this. Doesn't really matter. Point is, he brought attention to it, and change was made. You can see this is a very substantial drop in rake. So the old rake was at 1020, it was $30. cap, 4%, $30 cap. Same with 4-handed, and then 5+ was $40, so 2 big blinds. Basically going to be pretty unbeatable unless the pool is absolutely brain dead, and even then, long term, you still might not be able to beat it. They'll probably just run out of money first. This is on par with like app game rake. This is often what, like, usually I think the app game I'm playing, the softest game, which is the squid game, that's the quote unquote VIP game. I think we pay 1 big blind in rake, and I've stopped playing it because I actually don't know that it's beatable, especially with squid being such high variance. And I think we pay a half a big blind in the other games, which that one's probably pretty close. And this is at like, 150, 300 with a half a big blind ante per person. So like the game's very, very, very big. The game is big enough and there's enough liquidity where it might be possible to beat that sort of rake. This rake is, the old rake is substantially larger. When you're paying like between a blind and a half to 2 big blinds in a 100 big blind structure game, it's going to be pretty tough. Maybe some of these are 200 big blind, but still, it's going to be pretty tough. The new rake structure is very, very player friendly. It's on par with industry standard. I think maybe the only thing that's slightly higher here than other sites is the 4% rake instead of the 3%. But in any event, you can see that all the way from $1, $2, $4, which I would say would be like the entry level to mid stakes, all the way up to 10-20. The max rake that they're taking heads up is less than a blind, and it stays flat. So the higher the stakes you play, the less rake that you're imposed upon, or the less rake that's imposed upon you, rather. Which is a great thing because obviously, heads up, you're playing all the hands. You're going to hit max rake a lot, and it's very important for the game to survive that rake is beatable. When you're looking at 3- and 4-handed, so short-handed games, again, very, very, very competitive rake. You're looking at 1 big blind at the 1-2-4 level, and then it looks like it's only $6 at the 5-10-20 level.
Pretty sick.
Yeah, so the high stakes rake here is like very, very good. $15 cap at the 5-10-20 level for full ring.
Dude, they just stone changed the heads up to $3. That's sick.
It's really important. I don't think people know how much rake impacts a game like heads up. Like, you're actually playing 100%, or I mean, 90+% of hands. So it's like you're paying rake every single hand. We kind of almost overlooked it with me and Airball. Like when we were setting up places, we're like, yeah, we'll just pay the private time, no big deal. It can't be that much, right?
It can.
But then we started like we were like well into the negotiations. Like we had already set times, duration, all this other stuff, and I was like, hold on, like, because I think we had agreed initially to play Bellagio and just pay the full private rake, which was $200 a half.
That's insane.
Plus tip. So we were looking at $500 a half, or sorry, $500 an hour in rake, playing 2-4. And
I mean, it sounds like a lot, but at the same time, that is like 1 and 1.1 bigs, 1.2 bigs per hour.
Right, but you're just not playing that many hands is the problem.
Well, you're probably playing like 30, maybe 40.
Yeah.
Well, that's per half. I'm saying you're playing like 40 hands a half.
No way.
If you're playing cash, if you're playing cash 8-handed, you play like 20 hands a down.
Blez and I played 120 hands of Hold'em heads up over 3 hours.
You guys played a little. I mean,
that's a reasonable pace, and he probably overfolded pre a little bit, so we got in a little bit more hands.
Yeah, but
So you're looking at like 40 hands an hour, 20 hands a half.
Don't you play that many hands when you're playing full ring?
Yeah, roughly, but
so how does that work?
I think heads up, like you just have. I don't know. Maybe we don't play that many in ring. Maybe if we were forced to count, it's actually going to be closer to like 12 a half.
Sure. Wow.
But also, like, they were hand shuffling.
So if you're playing, like you
don't have to. There's no latency between hands
Well, I
in
guess
ring.
if you did what Doug does at the lodge and had 2 dealers going,
Right, that would change things.
it's
That
possible
would have
it'd be-
doubled things. Yeah.
Sure. And then the rake isn't.
But
as
that wasn't
bad.
what was happening. That
Correct.
wasn't. So at $500 an hour, we would have been looking at $50K in rake over 100 hours, which when you put it that way, seems like a lot. No? Doesn't seem like a lot to you?
$500 an hour
Yeah.
for 100 hours.
Yeah.
That's $50K.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh. It does, but again, it's also not, because 100 hours is, if you're paying like roughly 2.5 to 3 bigs per 100 hands. That's what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Well, 100 hours figuring 40 hands an hour, so you're going to play 4,000 hands and pay 50K. So call it 5,000 hands for ease, and pay 50K. So you're talking about what, $10 a hand? So $100 per 10, $1,000 per 100. So you're paying what, 2.5 big blinds per 100?
That's beatable.
Yeah, super beatable. It wasn't a question of beatable or not.
Okay.
It was a question of like, how much do we want to tax ourselves?
I think you guys get to the point
So
of you're playing so high.
Well, that's the thing. Remember, we're playing 200, 400, but that's just the private rake period. We could have been playing 510 and still paid the same 50K. And now, in which case, there's no way it's beatable.
Right.
Or say we're playing 2040. Say we're playing 1/10 the stakes, right? Now there's no way, because now you're paying 21.
You would have never done
21
that.
big blinds per hand,
You would
or
never,
per 100.
You would never have done that.
Right. Well, we didn't do it this way either. We ended up getting a better deal from Resorts. To be fair to Bellagio, they offered us the same deal. We had just already committed to Resorts, but we paid $50 in tip and $100 a half. So half that rate, 25K over 100 hours.
How many hours did you guys play?
60. So it ended up being slightly less. It was 22K with rake and massages.
But you paid for half of the 22, because Nick paid for the other half. You paid 11K.
I paid.
You see what I'm saying? So that number of 50K is for both of you. You only paid 20. You would only pay 25.
I think he paid for all of it.
What do you mean?
Well, the stop loss was $1 million, and that when it was all said and done, I had won physically $1 million off of him, but we had paid $22,000 in rake and massage,
Right.
so that all had to come out of him.
Because you profited $1 million.
Correct.
$1 million plus. Whatever.
Yeah. So it was all going to come from the loser.
Ah. Nice.
Well, I guess not necessarily.
Actually-
Only if they hit the stop loss.
only from the loser if they hit the stop loss.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's split.
You weren't supposed to play a total of 100 hours, right? It was just.
That was the minimum. That was the minimum opt out if the stop loss wasn't hit prior. So it was 100 hours or $1 million loss, and neither of those were hard stops.
Right, unless you wanted to.
Players could have decided to continue.
You're not going
on.
to tell them not to keep playing if you stuck $1 million.
I was ready. I was ready to go the fucking long haul.
My friend, wow.
But anyway, for all WPT Gold,
Now
Voyage.
it's sick. It's $3 heads up, and you're playing 10-20.
Heads Up has a chance to really flourish. Even the ring, though, like this is a substantial drop.
Oh, for sure.
The smaller stake stuff stayed the same. So the 124, 248, those stayed the same. 124 got a little bit of a reduction at full ring, but there's a significant reduction here at 5, 10, 20. Going from $20 to 15 seems pretty substantial. I feel like all of the stakes aren't listed here, so I don't know if there are other rake changes that are worth noting. But either way, this is a very good thing. This was something that we kind of spoke about out of the gate. Like, they don't have a rewards program, they don't have a rake back program just yet, and I don't know if they plan on having one.
Honestly, with rake like this, they probably don't need one.
Well, I
You see
mean,
what I'm
this
saying?
is just on par with industry. Like,
Is it? I don't.
yeah, I think WSOP is
Is there a way to
around here or slightly less.
Is there a way to find that out?
I mean,
Does WSOP have it?
yeah,
rake
of
back?
course.
Yeah, it's a rewards.
No,
program.
not rake back. How much rake
The
you're
rake structure?
paying? Yeah, at at 10-20.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I know without looking.
It's $3 if you're playing heads up.
Yeah. When Daniel and Doug played the 200, 400, it was either $3 or $4. So it's extremely low. I don't know their full rake structure, but I'm very sure it's comparable to this.
Hmm.
Let me see.
This is Guapo has it on the screen, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What are we looking for? 1, 2, and higher?
We're looking for 1020.
Everything's capped at look. Just scroll. Just find the biggest stakes. Whatever. Everything's capped at $3.50.
We go up. Texas no limit. Yeah, 2 players max is at 25.50. Max is 2. Oh wow, it's cheap. Yeah, it's very cheap.
Yeah, and I think it was $3 at 200, 400.
Well,
and they give rake back.
It seems like it would be.
Not only do they give rake back, but it's like pretty aggressive rake back. Like you do really well with your rewards.
I used to
on
6
WSOP.
table 100 NL and make like $20 every hour.
Sick.
That's huge.
It's a lot.
That's huge.
That's what it used to
20
be.
big blinds an hour?
It's different now.
10, 1, 2, $20.
You said 100 NL.
Yeah, 50 cent dollar.
And you made 20.
Six,
oh wow.
Six tables. Yeah, 15 to like $20 an hour.
In rake back?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Bring it back. Bring it back. I'll be grinding. I'm ready.
That was 6.
No,
max,
you're
by the way.
not.
I am ready.
No, you're not.
I am.
It's a lot of big blinds per hour. It's not a lot of money per hour.
I'm ready.
Okay, you're gonna go out and get your summer job, making $22 an hour.
It's more. That's only in rake back. It's not even
if you
accounting
break
winning.
even, right?
It's not even
Yeah, I get it, but like okay, so
WSOP is going on. It can't be a summer job.
$40 an hour.
You know what else is nice is every month WSOP.com had a reload bonus. They would basically give away $500 every month.
They still are pretty
They
aggressive
had a
with
birthday
that.
bonus every year.
Yeah.
The
only
Happy
thing with
birthday
their
to Beans'
the
son.
only thing with their bonuses is you kind of have to search them out. Like you'll get a pop up when you initially open the client, or at least on the old one. I haven't really used the new one.
They email a lot too.
Yeah, but that's when I say search it out though. Like I feel like that is kind of, you know what I mean. It's not like right in your face. There isn't like a big social media campaign where it's like, oh shit, today's the reload bonus day. You know, that kind of thing. But I do think people that pay attention to that stuff, that are looking to make more free money, they find it. They find it pretty easily too. All right, let's get to today's main story. And this is a lot to unpack, to be quite honest. I'm curious to hear what you guys think maybe should have happened in this instance, as well as what protocols could potentially be put into place moving forward. But to just give you the gist of what happened, big shout out to fellow Yinzer. I don't even know if he's a Yinzer, but he went to CMU, so he's Yinzer adjacent at bare minimum. Eric Zhang, he put this tweet out. This was 2 days ago, I believe. He said, getting cheated in an absurd floor decision at Venetian Poker. 10 left, final table bubble, pay jump from 11 to 14K. Pretty substantial, even if the money isn't that big. It's a substantial percentage jump. Spanish Pro jams 2.5 big blinds on the other table from the small blind. The other Spanish Pro at the table folds the big blind and slides his hand directly into the muck. Pads instantly calls the floor saying that they are friends and are chip dumping. Floor is some new guy, comes over, basically says, well, I can't make him call, and leaves without doing any investigating, allowing the deck to be shuffled and the evidence gone. I'm on the other table with 5 big blinds at the same time, and JBEX raises my big. I ask the dealer for floor. Dealer refuses to pause the shot clock at all during this. Second floor comes over to my table. I say the other table had cheating accusations, and it wasn't investigated properly. I need the clock paused, and for this to be resolved before I play my hand and potentially bust in 10th place. Floor just keeps telling me you need to play your hand over and over, while completely ignoring people from the other table chiming in and me trying to explain the situation. So I'm playing my hand, trying to see the situation on the other table, and trying to talk to this floor at the same time on a 20-second shot clock. I wonder why they keep missing it. Okay, that's not important. Pads, JBEX, good luck tomorrow. Feel free to chime in if you felt I misrepresented anything. I may be petty, but I appreciate if nobody tipped on a win tomorrow. That sentence is actually what caught the most attention out of this whole thread, which is hilarious to me because, no offense, guys, to everybody out there that's, you know, kind of giving Eric a lot of guff, saying like, no, you shouldn't withhold tips. Like, this is only 1 or 2 people that you're not happy with the service about. First of all, They represent the entire room. So if you're not happy with the service of the room, of course you shouldn't tip. But let me let you in on a little trade secret from the pros. If you're tipping on MTT wins, you're a fucking whale.
Wish somebody would have told me that a long time ago.
You cannot be a professional poker player and tip on MTT wins. I'm sorry. To all the rooms out there, to all the dealers and staff and everybody else, I'm sure if you polled them, they can attest that I'm extremely generous in all accounts when it comes to dealing with staff and tipping and making sure that they're all cared for. But when it comes to MTTs, you absolutely cannot add that tax on to the player after the fact once they've already taken 11 to 23% out of the prize pool for those exact reasons.
I don't know how much things have changed because I don't play a lot of tournament poker. But I remember when I first started playing poker, it was all about tournaments. And I remember at the Aria specifically, like when you cashed, you would go down this little hallway and you would you'd give your ticket or something. There was like a jar right there saying, you know, tips are greatly appreciated or whatever for tournament wins or for tournament scores or something to that nature.
Yeah.
And then I remember another time at a big venue here in town, one of my biggest payouts, the guy that handed me his ticket, the payout ticket was like, hey, just so you know, like, you know, you can tip us for
at the
and I
World
just thought
Series. They straight up solicit you.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like it was totally like it was odd.
Yeah, they just straight up solicit you. I was really shocked to see how many pros came out in favor of tipping in this thread. I was astonished. Like Pad said, I wouldn't go the route of not tipping. It was only one or two people that he handled with. I disagree with Pad's take there for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, because you shouldn't be tipping to begin with. But secondarily, because if you're disgruntled with the one single floor person, if you're disgruntled with one single floor person when there's 10 people left, that's reflective of the entire venue. And you should just never be tipping the rest of the staff that's a part of this venue. Like, I hate to say that everybody should suffer because of it, but like, that's your playing experience. And if they fucked with your money when the money matters the most, then of course they're not going to get an additional gratuity. But the bigger point at large is like, you cannot be a professional poker player and tip on tournament scores. You'll never beat it. You'll just never beat it. I remember when I was coming up, like the heated debate in the cash games were like, if you won the main event, how much would you tip? I heard that Hashem. I heard that Hashem didn't tip anything. This greedy like, you know, way back in the day. And I used to be on the side of like, well, yeah, obviously. Because like, what's your tip going to do? If you gave $100,000, what does that equate to? An extra few $100 per dealer and floor? Now, that's not that big of a deal, number one. Number two, they already fucking got you. They already withheld the prize pool. And there were guys like, you know, we were playing with bookies and, you know, quote unquote restaurant owners and whatnot. They're like, I'd leave, you know, Jamie Gold won 10 million. I'd leave $1 million. It's like, the fuck?
It's like it's just a different kind of class, right? You're just so rich that if you want 10 million, what do you care?
It's just ignorance. You did not win $10 million. You won 60% of $10 million because you have to pay taxes. And they've already taken, like, when he won, the prize pool was like, what, 80 million, I think, total? They've already taken 8 million out of the prize pool to distribute. Why are you hurting yourself? Like, you should be able to do more in growing that capital by retaining it than dispersing it out amongst a few thousand people.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it's like, that's just fundamentally bad economics.
They probably get so many people though over the series.
So many. They probably get an extra like 1% to 2%.
It's like the people that like take your coffee and then flip the screen around. It's like, how much you want to tip? It's like, God, man.
There was a funny last week tonight, I think last week or the week before, about tipping. And they showed how egregious it's gotten. There was a demonstration of a robot coffee machine. So you just plug your order into a punch pad or whatever, and it's literally all AI'd. Yeah. This robot arm comes over, makes your thing and pushes it forward, and then asks you how much gratuity you want to leave.
Right.
For the robot?
Yeah.
The fuck out of
I mean, it's not for the robot. That's the thing. It's just tipping culture has has inundated us so
I'm
deeply.
not the robot's got a
tipping
house.
A fucking robot. What is
But like,
going
why
on?
would you? But in the theory of like the way it works is like, why would you would tip a human but not tip a robot?
Right. What's the difference?
Between tipping a robot and a human?
The
Yeah.
difference is your attitude.
I mean,
They're just making the thing they're supposed to make. It's already priced in.
This is why people laugh
and look,
in America.
I'm with you, man. I would also tip a human. And I would overly tip them too. Like, I just tend to be too free with
I'm
these
probably
things.
biased because I was in the game for so long.
Of course.
Yeah, but what if it was a
Well,
robot? Even Guapo wouldn't tip the robot.
I would not tip a robot. I gotta
Right.
be honest.
And that's the point, is that in both instances, the owner is putting the onus back on the customer to pay your salary. He doesn't want to pay his employee, right? So you get to pay what it's like less than minimum wage. Usually it's like $4 an hour or something like that if you're a tip worker. And so like very low end cost for the owner now to have good workers. And you basically double down on the clientele and say, like, not only are you paying markup on this drink, this $12 shot of whiskey where the entire bottle costs $15, not only are you doing that, but now you also have to give $1 or $2 to my bartender for taking care of you.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
but
like,
if it was a robot, no tip. No tip for the robot bartender.
because that's what makes it click. That's what makes you as a consumer understand, like, I'm already getting fucked here. That was zero effort from this machine. I'm not, but we have empathy. We feel for people in the service industry, as we should. I'm not trying to say we shouldn't generally tip. I'm just saying in an MTT, it's already baked in. You have to understand that. Tip in a cash game because it's not baked in.
Yeah, I guess the difference is like in restaurants and stuff, like tip culture like doesn't exist anywhere but America.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people are aware that it's on the business to pay people's jobs, where if bartenders were getting paid enough in America, it probably wouldn't be tips, but instead it's smart from the business owner to say, hey, like, let's pay this guy $10
Right.
and also have tip culture exist.
Precisely. It needs to change at a fundamental level, like whether it's
like, Guapo,
a government or
when
otherwise.
you were a bartender, if you were given the option of make money in tips or get your hourly tripled, which would you pick?
You're actually pretty close, but I think I would still rather work for tips. Like the amount of money you make as a bartender is.
What if on average you could make the exact same?
Yeah, I guess I'd just bank on the guaranteed money.
You want the guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you would have to really believe that you had some power of manipulation to outkick your coverage and overperform.
And even now, like if you're someone that could choose between the two, you're not having empathy for someone paying extra money to pay you.
Correct.
When the business could just pay you what you're
Correct.
owed.
You'd rather shake down the consumer.
Although I don't know how good it would be for the restaurant too. Like for instance,
Of course it's worse for
like
them.
the pull for like when you go to like Twin Peaks, like you go to Twin Peaks because you want to go talk to the hot bartender and like they're chatty with you and stuff. But if all of a sudden they're making $40-50 an hour, maybe they don't have to be so nice anymore.
Yeah, the service doesn't have to be as fast, and
Or good.
There's a lot of arguments there, but they could just pay more and say we want you to still do these things. You know, it's
true. It
it's
still
all
exists.
it's an economic conundrum, obviously, and I've now done exactly what the people in this thread have done, which is latch on to the point that doesn't fucking matter at all. Tipping is irrelevant in this particular conversation. What matters a lot more is it chip dumping / collusion when somebody shoves for 3 big blinds from the small blind into the big blind who then folds.
And they're speculated to be both professional poker players.
They're both speculated to be professionals. They both happen to be Spanish, which, you know, I don't want to get into like the xenophobia of all this where it's like, oh, well, because they're from a foreign land and together they must know each other, which they probably do. I don't know. But there's a lot of speculation going on here. The bigger question that I have, outside of all of the accusations and things that we can't necessarily prove here, is when it comes to collusion protocols, are there actually any in place that work?
At the moment?
At the moment.
I don't think so.
Because there are a lot of protocols.
Signal, right?
There are a lot of protocols. Well, when I say collusion, I mostly mean like chip dumping type of stuff.
Yeah, like how can you prove someone's colluding?
So this is the thing, right? There are a lot of protocols in place that are there in order to prevent chip dumping specifically. And for years, I've argued that none of them make any sense. You have to table the winning hand. Why? What's the difference? If it goes bet fold and you table 9-3 high, what have you demonstrated? Who is the watchful eye that gets to say, that doesn't look right? That doesn't make sense, right?
There is none.
There is none. All in and call. Both hands have to be tabled, right? If you bust a tournament, you have to table your losing hand. Why? Who's gonna police it if it's suspicious?
Nobody.
Nobody. So in this particular instance, where Pads calls the floor over, are we really shocked?
That really is such a silly rule too. The
Right.
all in and call, like post flop even,
Yeah.
and someone tables their hand and they're good, and the other guy wants to muck it, but then they're like, no, like you have to flip that hand over. You don't.
If they're
The people
already
are only doing
mucking,
that. Yeah, like the people are only doing that because they're greedy and they want to know something for like the future potentially.
Of course.
Or they're just curious cats now.
If they tabled the nut low, if that person tabled the nut low, who's going to call floor over and say, hey, man, I think he just dumped his chips to him. He called an all in with the absolute nut low, no pair, no draw. Can you do something about this? What floor is actually going to say, sir, come with me,
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
right? Because they can't put him back into the tournament. They can't make it right. They're not going to divvy the pot up.
I was winning way before
They
he got
might
here.
86 the guy. So the best case scenario is you get the guy banned for quote unquote chip dumping, right? But you now have to make a subjective call on the fly, and anybody worth anything isn't going to do it with the nut low. They're going to do it with some sort of hand that they could justifiably defend,
Oh, I hit ace
right?
high.
And then what do you do with like wild wrec amateurs who just like to torch it off?
That's what I was about to say.
Where's
just
the
like
line
just
drawn?
like ravaging it off with
Yeah.
dust and getting called. It's like that's collusion. It's like I literally don't even know this guy.
Or maybe you're just really bad at poker, or you're just
Correct.
recreational and
Correct.
you don't know any
And
better.
also, there's
Or, like,
just like a lot of theoretical lines that are to the naked eye are going to look really, really bad. A guy, here's the best one, because this fades the anti-collusion rule. A guy, we saw Chidwick do this on stream. Check raise all in minus a chip with ace jack high on a board where it's like, I don't even remember if ace jack high was relevant. It didn't matter. Guy jams over top of it. He just gets to slide it in the muck. What if somebody said, I want to see that hand? Okay, fine. Floor comes over. They table it. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. It looks like he was chip dumping. Who's going to accuse Chidwick of that? Right? Now, take Chidwick out of the seat and put some 27-year-old kid that you don't know who's from Argentina. And it just so happened the other kid who won the pot's also from Argentina. Now what happens? Now this kid might get banned. What's the difference?
your attitude.
You see what I mean? There's no clear-cut protocol to police here.
No.
It's all subjective. And it used to work way, way, way back in the past because there was just no license to be idiotic. If something made no logical sense whatsoever, like check jamming all in minus a chip and having 6 high, people would just be like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. You're dumping chips to
Yeah,
him.
or it's like check raise all in minus a chip. Guy goes all in over that as a bluff because he thinks the other guy's bluffing.
Right.
Gets called and the guy has turbo dust. It's like, you're chip dumping to this guy. It's like,
Right.
no, man, I just thought he was bluffing. But like, who's to say that it's actually good or not?
Right. So it's clear we've identified a massive, massive hole in the current protocols for policing collusion, chip dumping, whatever you want to call it, right?
How can you even police?
Exactly. So that's the issue at hand here, is that it's very unenforceable. Now, could the floor have performed a bunch of theatrics to make Patrick happy? Of course. Right? The floor could have said, I need to see that hand. Okay, table it. Let's say it's 6-5 offsuit. What's the difference? It was a range call spot anyway. Right?
And well, someone can even make the argument of like, I would have folded to anybody. I think there's more EV in keeping this guy short-ish and
Exactly.
having the bubble for 10 even if it's not truly correct or whatever, doesn't matter. You can understand where someone's coming from with that, and how do you know if it's collusion or not?
Right. So Patrick replied to Eric's tweet, and he said, Floor said to me, what if he had 7-2 off? As a response, when I called the floor, I said, what is your line? You'd have a problem with it. Is it 2 big blinds? Is it 1.1 big blind? He said, if the cards aren't exposed, we can't do anything. Was actually a good spot for chip leader to keep the bubble going longer, 5-handed and could put pressure on with big bounties, etc., but wasn't what happened. Well, I think it's a large leap to say that wasn't what happened, right? The guy's obviously a good player. He knows he has a range call, so he's folding for one of two reasons. He's folding because he wants to keep the bubble alive, or he's folding because he's chip dumping into his friend.
Or both.
Or both. But regardless of what his reasoning is, no one can know outside of him. And exposing the cards don't change anything. That's the biggest thing. I think what everybody wanted to have happen here was the floor come over and have him table that hand. The problem is what happens thereafter. Because now all you have is a debate. At best, you have a debate.
Like, is it even, like, let's just say this
technically
guy...
he still hasn't done anything that's considered cheating, right?
The floor, so the issue I think the players have is that the floor had a very, and I wasn't there, so I don't want to speak on behalf of Venetian's floor, but as it's being reported, the floor had a very arrogant, dismissive response of, what do you want me to do? Make him call? Right? And Patrick's point is very valid. Like, what if he shoved for a 1/10 of a big blind more? Is he still allowed to have a fold? And the thing is, according to the rules, yes. So until you write in the rules in some ironclad way that there are thresholds by which a person is committed to the pot, which is never going to happen, by the way. Right? So unless you write in something along the lines of like, well, if you're getting 9-1 pre-flop, you have to call. Yeah. If you're getting 9-1 and closing the action, you always have to call. Right? Until that rule is written into the rule books.
Which will never happen. Who creates the rule book? The guys, individual casinos.
Everybody has their own, but the TDA Summit oversees a lot of it. Like they basically put out a suggested rule book to all TDAs.
Gotcha.
And then they're allowed to adapt on it as they see fit.
That'll never happen.
Bigger point is, like, let's say that this is the best trained floor in the world, right? Let's say you have a guy like Savage on hand who gets to witness this whole thing. All he's going to be able to do is reassure Patrick and the others that this isn't cheating, and at most he'll be able to issue a warning to the two Spanish kids.
But what's the warning? Like, call next time?
I think it would be more so if we see a repeated pattern of behavior like this between the two of you, then we are going to assume the worst.
Well, it's interesting because I guess in ICM, like Theoryland, the people that gain money from this aren't just those two. You know what I mean? Like, the person that jams is obviously winning a lot of money, and the guy that's not calling is giving him the money. But other people in the tournament are still making money as they're still in the tournament.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? Like, the people that are on the outside aren't paying anything in this instance.
Right.
The person that's getting paid, the person that's paying is the chip leader that's not calling range.
Is he? Because he's gaining in future game.
Well, that's the argument. Is he thinks he's gaining in future game, but he might not be.
He most certainly is if that's the reasoning behind it. Right? Like, that's a strategic thing. Keeping the bubble going because you're earning more in every future hand thereafter is definitely a thing.
For sure. So now the people that are not in the hand are saying that they're losing money because they need to play differently as the bubble still persists where it might not have if you call.
Specifically in this particular instance, Eric, because he also has 5 big blinds. And now the small blind effectively fully doubled without having to show a hand.
Right.
So now he has to make different decisions, being last in chips instead of next to last, by a pretty significant margin. Like, well, it was 5 blinds to 2.5,
if big blind
or
busts,
3, whatever.
Then you combine a final table of 9,
right?
And then you can fold a little bit tighter.
Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios. The bigger point here, the bigger issue here, is not, in my opinion, anyway. It's not that this occurred. It's that this is unpoliceable. And I truly don't see a clear way of building a better system. So sure, from a customer service standpoint, I think the Venetian could have handled this differently. But
like obliged to the hand showing and the potential
theatrics.
Is it possible that nobody goes onto social media and no one makes, I'm going to say stink because that's the only word that comes to mind. If the tournament director or whomever comes over, the floor comes over and goes, listen, I understand completely what you're saying. Let me talk this over with someone else. We're going to pause things.
Mm-hmm.
And then it still comes back with the same answer like, hey, look, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
If they would have handled it that way, is it possible we're just not talking about this?
Yes, I think so.
Man,
Well, with one caveat. I think that it would still gotten brought up that it was 2 Spanish pros. And that's the other thing I want to point to here.
I also think Patrick would have made a tweet about like the dog and pony show of like they said they would do something, nothing happened.
Well, we're speculating.
Nothing can happen. That's the point. He knows nothing can happen. I've watched him reply in dozens of different threads where they ask him, what would you have done differently? And it's just like, I don't know. I've thought long and hard about this and I don't know.
Yeah.
Because how could you know? Right? Like, it's different online. You can make stronger assumptions because you have more data. You have access to all the hole cards. You can see how these 2 players have played against each other in the past. Has there been instances of potential chip dumping? Like, you can actually comb through that type of shit. But live, you can't do anything. And there's a lot of assumptions being made here because of the relationship between the 2 players. And that's the other aspect that I think really sucks about this. There are 2 Spanish players in America. So, of course, they're going to get singled out anytime that there's any sort of collision between the 2 of them that comes off as friendly. The same way 2 Americans would get pointed out in Europe. But like, imagine me and imagine me and Doug are at the same table in an event in Monaco. Mostly everybody around us is Spanish or French or, some version of European. And then it's just Doug and I, blind on blind. And some sort of thing like this happens. I jam, he folds in a spot that's probably a range call. And they immediately claim collusion. It's like, I fucking hate this guy. You
guys both speak English.
But we're both white. We're both American. And let's say we're not the high profile individuals that we are. We're just 2 guys playing poker in a foreign land. Immediately, people are going to be more suspect of that than if Javier is in the big blind and I jam on him and he folds. We don't even speak the same language. So, of course, we're not colluding it. And so these are all reasonable, logical conclusions to get to. But my point is that just because they speak the same language or are from the same land doesn't mean that they're a part of the same group. It doesn't mean that they're friends. It doesn't mean that there's anything shady going on here. Now, I'm also not dismissing those claims. From my understanding, these guys are a part of a group of 6 or 7 guys that have traveled over here. They probably do work together off the felt. They probably do study together. They probably are friends. They might even have action on one another. And we also saw this 3-handed with Chrissy B and Foxen whenever they got 3-handed against Cal Burns. They went so far as to offer a chop in that scenario because obviously the dynamics were going to be weird. The bigger point is that like clearly there is a very small problem that's getting blown up here into one that has us having this very, very lengthy discussion. And before we shift into how this is actually blown up, I want to kind of just get into the back and forth between everybody involved thereafter. So Paul, who went on to win the event, was the big blind Spaniard that folded. He said, I would have folded that hand against every player at the table, and I'm not going to talk about strategy at the poker table with non-professionals. I find it too much to even talk about here, but I feel obliged to. On the other hand, accusing somebody of something without proof seems ugly. He later went on to say that it was 3 big blinds, not 2.5, and that he just had 8-3 off and was going to muck no matter what. Eric kind of followed up and said, I'm not trying to make an ironclad accusation. I'm more trying to talk about the floor's decision here. So that's why I didn't name you. But at least 8 out of 10 players left are regs. I think that showing a bad hand in this instance or saying that you were folding for bubble reasons when accused are completely standard. And I guess it's just like, sure, but that doesn't change the opportunity to cheat,
Yeah, there's no actual solution.
Right. It's just like he's in a spot where he gets to control the bubble, so that's just viable. Or if you're claiming that showing a bad hand is good enough in this instance, then that's also just viable. What do we qualify as a bad hand at this point? What if he shows 10-9 off? Well, if he shows it as a professional, we would be like, that's fucked up. He's cheating. But if, Mr. Bob from fucking down the road who's playing in his first 1100 shows 10-9 off because he knows that not to be a very good hand, we're just going to shrug and say, like, that's an amateur. And that discretion is a fucking lot to put on a floor. They're not going to be able to police things the way players are.
I'm going to check the Hendon mobs.
You know what I mean? It's like they're just not going to be able to handle these situations. So I don't really know what the outcome or solution is supposed to be here.
Or even if a pro folds and says, like, I think there's more EV in the bubble going, and I'm going to fold a hand that's not winning very much.
What if he's just wrong? What if he's like third in chips when he says that? But he's chip leader at that table, and he just feels like that. And also, like, now you're forcing him to divulge his strategy out loud. That also seems shitty. So it's like,
explain yourself.
We have this double-edged sword here where it's like, I agree with Patrick and Eric that this is a very clear and blatant issue, right? It's very obvious that this falls under the camp of potentially chip dumping. I can't think of a more blatant spot outside of like the other one that I put forward where it's like you jam all in minus a blind and a guy shoves over top of it and you snap muck. You know, that type of thing. But, or, you know, they call and you just say you're good and snap muck your hand, right? Like that's another way. Point is like the system allows for a lot of variations of chip dumping where there's just little to no policing that can be done outside of forcing exposed cards and educating floor people on how to make subjective calls. So from that standpoint, I agree that we've identified something. From the standpoint of Paul and the other Spanish guys, how can you police this? You know, why are their reasons not valid? And if we agree that their reasons are valid, why do they need to be spoken out loud? You know what I mean? So it really does just become this mudslinging back and forth that feels really shitty because, you know, to my understanding, Paul's a respected professional. It doesn't look like he has any smudges on his record or anything along those lines. And it seems like Eric is a young, up-and-coming, budding pro himself who's just trying to keep the game fair and even. And when a voice like Pads speaks out on it, of course, it's very easy to rally behind it. When you're the one who's taking the worst of it, while somebody as high profile as Pads is pointing out what's happening, it's really hard not to get blinded by the injustice in that particular instance, right? Like, you're the second short stack, and the highest profile player remaining, Patrick Leonard, stands up and goes, that short stack is cheating. How easy is it to rally behind that and just find all the reasons why your argument is pretty solid here, right? So I think that opened a whole new can of worms because that then led to one of my favorites, for what it's worth. Mr. Brock Lesnar himself, Mike Holtz. He came out with a 10-minute video talking about this entire group of Spaniards who he didn't name, but he seemed to lump Paul and the other kid in with, as well as some screenshots he posted regarding him potentially having been ghosting someone in his stable or one of his friends on GG in the past year. And I think we'll listen to this really quickly. I'll summarize what he's saying, and we can kind of talk about the speculative nature of it all.
I want to make a video explaining what happened at Resorts World during the $800 main event. I played day 1C, and at my table were two either Spanish or Colombian guys, I'm not sure their ethnicity. One's in the 9 seat and one's in the 2 seat. The guy in the 9 seat has a big stack, the guy in the 2 seat does not. Every time the 9 seat opens, it seems to me like the 2 seat is folding in a way where he's folding his cards and showing the 2 seat. So every time he folds it towards the 9 seat rather, and he can see. That's only when the 7, 8, and 1 seat fold that he does it every time. I saw it twice, and I thought this guy's got to be. It's pretty funky. Like, it's a weird hand motion to do. So I decided to watch. So I noticed that he started folding normally whenever the 9 seat wouldn't open. Now the 9 seat wins this tournament, by the way. Keep that in mind. He wins all the money. The third time it happens, it's my big blind. 9 seat opens, 2 seat folds, does in the way, and I mutter something to myself like, "What the fuck, man?" And then it comes to me. I call and I check fold the flop. To my right is my buddy Patrick. Patrick immediately says, "They're fucking cheating, right?" Like, they have to be cheating. I was like, yeah, no, they're cheating 100%. Call the floor over. The floor like looks at us and is just like, I don't know what you want me to do about this. Like, if they keep doing it, tell me. Happens again. Same thing. I'm arguing with them at the table. I'm like, bro, you guys got, like, what are you doing? You're cheating us right now. And they're like, you're sort of losers. You're just sort of losers. And meanwhile, I have 7 starting stacks. So it seems odd to me that would be their line of reasoning. If I did that, I would be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. If I do it again, please let me know. So the guy in the 2 seat gets eliminated. I get moved to a different table. And there's another guy who's part of their friend group. He's in the 1 seat. I'm in the 3 seat. Colin Robinson, good professional poker player. He's in the 2 seat. The guy who busted earlier in the 2 seat, the guy sharing the cards, walks into the Resorts World poker room behind this guy who's in the 1 seat. And he's talking in a different language while cards are being dealt. And I'm looking at the floor. I'm like, yo, get this cheating fucker out of here. Like, get him away from us. He can't be here. He gets cards on the button. The guy behind him is staring at me, just like smiling, like, yeah, you can't do shit about it. They don't care. Cards get dealt to him. He looks at it. The guy behind him is looking too. And then the guy behind him immediately just stares at Colin Robinson and I in the blinds and starts talking in a different language. And I start yelling. I start yelling to the floor, what is happening right now? What could possibly be occurring other than them cheating? The guy behind him runs out of the poker room. The floor says, what do you want me to do, chase him? I'm like, dude, you got to tell this guy still sitting at the table that he can't cheat us. Well, what is happening right now? So that's the first day, okay? There was also an incident where a guy pocketed 10,000 chips, tournament chips in his pocket. My buddy Brad Gafford, who just got second in the Venetian today, was there, told the floor, one of the floors, they said they checked the cameras. Cameras never checked. Guy gets kicked out 4 hours later. He's already been trespassed from the casino. So this guy's stack's got to be removed with 30 people left, 24 advance.
All right. So there's a lot.
There's 7 minutes more.
Yeah, it just keeps going. I think, like, first and foremost, like, obviously Mike is very passionate about this. He's a regular grinder. When he sees an injustice, he wants to point it out. And he also wants the support of staff. And I think that's the big thing that seems to be lacking here, is that when players show concern, the staff largely seems to not offer very much support. And what I would personally say is a third-party observer who doesn't really play MTTs very often is that they're just not capable of giving you the support that you need. They're not trained to deal with this sort of stuff. And I know that I'm speaking a little bit out of pocket here. I don't know exactly what their training is, but I've dealt with enough floor people to know that they have, on average, there are some great floors out there, obviously, but on average, they have a very rudimentary understanding of poker. And it's not very detailed. It's not very nuanced. So when it comes to these sort of things, they're not sure what to look for. They're not sure how to offer corrective action. They're not really sure who to even police necessarily. And, you know, rightfully, they don't want to alienate other customers. So they don't want to just like start whipping out warnings because you're complaining about something, right? Like, there are a lot of people that complain. You know, there's a lot of Kesslers of this world. So it becomes a really tiring task for the floor to discern what's a real gripe versus what's just like somebody who's off put by something.
I mean, the guy running out of the casino is probably not.
Yeah, but it's very valid. What do you want him to do? Chase him? I mean, you know, he can't do. Obviously, that's not the right response, but it should be. The person still there should be held accountable for this guy in some sort of capacity.
It feels like that should be the answer.
Yeah, you
There's
should.
a guy behind you that's not allowed here. There's probably something going on.
You should probably warn the player that's still there. You should probably run his name and make sure that he doesn't have prior, accusations or whatever. And, you know, another thing that could be helpful, the World Series used to do this. I don't know if they still do, but keeping a log of when people get penalties. You keep an ongoing record of what their violation was, how egregious it was, what was the punishment for it? Was it a penalty? Was it a warning? Did they get around? Have they been 86? You know what I mean? Like all of these things so that you know if you're dealing with a potential ring, if you're dealing with people who are known for this sort of shit. Like Young Man is a great example. Everybody knows Young Man's a fucking angler. But if he's new to your room, you're not going to know that. And if you're a new floor person, you're not going to know that. And you're going to have to learn the hard way. And dealing with those situations in real time is a very challenging thing. He angled me at TCH Austin way back when we made our very first trip out there in like 2019. There was a situation where he I think he like checked river and I jammed. But I said all in verbally. Everybody heard me. And we were playing 2-5 during the meetup game. And I moved like 2 barrels of chips forward. And he like smashes a call, just like very quickly calls. I table the winner.
Do we limp with kings?
No, nothing like that. I table the winner and he goes, how much? And the dealer was like, all of it. He covers you. He goes, no. How much are those bets?
Yeah.
And the dealer was like, he said all in, you said call. And he goes, no. I'm only calling what he pushed forward. Like, he never said all in. He never said all in. They call the floor person over and like, the floor now has to basically listen to the he said, she said. Now, of course, he's always going to defer to the dealer, but the dealer wasn't certain initially. The dealer became certain as everybody at the table encouraged him one way, right? But you're basically now just in a court and you're being deliberated to by lawyers.
Well, the table was on your side saying
Correct.
that you did say, oh,
yes,
okay.
yes, okay. For sure. So in this instance, they were on the right side.
Okay.
But imagine they're not paying attention. And imagine I'm not the guy hosting the meetup game who's playing 1/10 of his normal stakes who would never angle, or 1/100th of his normal stakes who would never angle in this spot, yada, yada, yada.
Times are tough.
Right? Just imagine that it's like two people of equal
skill
likability,
level. Oh, okay.
And a bunch of randoms who are paying half attention here and there. Now all of a sudden you might get a bunch of I don't know. Now imagine it's like a dealer who doesn't speak very good English. What's the floor to do? And this is a big part of their job. This is a big part of their training. At the end of the day, there aren't going to be perfect solutions. So I really I feel for the staff a lot. Now Mike goes on to explain a lot of scenarios that are very problematic. And I believe he was speaking all about Resorts World. So he was talking about dealers' pitches being too high. That goes on later in the video, and them not wanting to police it, and dealers being very offended when they get told that their pitch is too high. Now, to be fair, in my experience, most players don't say it politely. They kind of scold dealers, and I don't like that power dynamic that players think that they have over the staff. It's very unfair. It's very imbalanced.
Also, imagine being that dealer and having to deal with that at least once a week, twice a week. It's the same reason when you go to the DMV that those employees aren't the kindest people because they're just dealing with the same shit over and over.
But, I trust that Mike is aware of this and wasn't like scolding him. So, if a dealer is pitching high, it's every player's right to ask them to please do better, but do it in a nice way. And if they don't oblige, quietly go get the floor, alert them of what's going on. Don't make a big spectacle of it. People love to embarrass other people over their shortcomings, and it's what allows these problems to persist, in my opinion. I feel like these floors are often getting embarrassed. Everything about this Venetian scenario seems to be an attempt to embarrass the floor people at the Venetian. Even in Mike's rant, a lot of this is about embarrassing the staff. And I get it. He's fed up. He's seen enough where he expects more. But that's not the way to get a solution. That's not the way to get it resolved, in my opinion. It's the way to get attention on it, which may eventually get it resolved. So that part's, I guess, good. But, obviously some clear protocols need to be implemented more widely throughout the industry. He basically said, this kid's flashing cards every time he folds to his buddy. That's very policeable. If that's actually happening, the floor shouldn't sit behind him and try to see if he can capture it. Instead, he should just warn the guy. And if there are more complaints, he should basically just observe the table for a period of time and potentially give penalties because of it. He also said somebody pocketed chips and then eventually potentially went north. This is something that the cameras should obviously be able to capture. We trust that every tournament operator out there is policing it. But look, I can promise you, it sneaks by. Men Wen didn't make a living for 15 years because he wasn't able to figure out ways to get chips pocketed and put in his hands. these types of things are certainly going to happen. And I'm not saying we have to turn the other cheek. I'm not saying we have to look the other way, but I am saying that much like everything else in life, this is just a part of the risk of doing your job. You know, this is like running a business. You know that there's going to be some percentage of theft if you're doing a product sort of business, right? It's just baked in to your bottom line. Same thing here. Like there's just going to be some low level edge seeking and cheating that takes place. The big thing that I want to, I guess, discuss regarding this is I want to support Mike's claims because, you know, it sounds like he has a lot of evidence. You know, he has these screenshots up that potentially show ghosting from, I think he's accusing the same Spanish player that went on to win the Venetian, Paul. And Patrick says, you know, this isn't conclusive evidence, but somehow in poker sites T's and C's, I think it would be good to have a no Discord, Zoom, or voice call while at a final table type of thing. You know, Mike went on to basically say, like, the only time this player would speak is whenever the person he's watching was in a hand. And obviously it was another language, so he couldn't dissect it. That's not really going to have anything to do with live poker, but that's clearly going to reflect upon the character of the person that's being accused. I think all of these claims are worth examining and worth digging deeper into. I also want to push back a little bit against Mike. He's very hyperbolic in the way that he's speaking. He's very demonstrative in calling people cheaters without much proof. You know, it's very important in this space to not cry wolf. We can't just start throwing around the terms cheats, colluders, chip dumper. You know what I mean? Like, we have to be really, really mindful about the language that we're using, the accusations we're levying, and how confident we are that there's something to make a stink about. I think shining a light instead on the events that occurred, rather than like the character of the person or trying to portray them as being one way or the other, is really fucking important to getting change actually done here. And then, you know, he mentioned he's in a bunch of Discords. Like, privately, I think that information could be exchanged. For the last month and a half, while the Win was running their Million series and Venetian had their thing going on as well as Go, all the high stakes guys have been sharing a bunch of photos back and forth of people that are in town that we suspect of using hole card cams, or not hole card, but pinhole cams. And we've been very diligent in working with the floor people, working with dealers, trying to keep devices off the rail, keeping certain players out of private games, even like the public games, trying not to play with them if there's high levels of suspicion. Unfortunately, these tasks all fall on us. But what I really want to point out, and I know that this is ironic given the stance that I've had online for many, many years, is yes, stuff is happening at a low level, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as the enthusiasm of that video would indicate, or the frequency by which we talk about it on the podcast would indicate. These are outlier scenarios. The majority of the games that you're playing are on the up and up. They're straight up. But there are some savvy, cunning individuals that when the money matters the most will search for every single unscrupulous edge that is potentially available. So I think that, you know, the messaging that like Pads put out as well as Savage, just like be on the lookout. You know, these are really big allegations, so we're going to need a lot more evidence to actually move forward in some sort of capacity. But be sure to be on the lookout, do your diligence, and form good relationships with staff. It's really, really critical to have TDs, to have dealers, to have floors, etc. in your corner when you come to them with these sort of, you know, gripes or accusations of sorts. At some point, we have to turn it over to them to do a better job. And I would leave the conversation there for hopefully Savage and others to pick up, because I truly don't know what protocols can be implemented to ensure that chip dumping isn't occurring, to ensure that chips aren't being pocketed at a higher rate, to ensure that there isn't some level of collusion between people non-English speaking, to ensure that devices remain off the rail because pinhole cameras are now becoming a thing. They have a lot to undertake. And the device thing is a lot easier to police than making a subjective call at whether or not a hand should have called a 3 big blind all in. And for that, I don't envy any of these floor people or TDs or anybody making up the rules. But at least we as a community have now opened up the dialogue. And if we have solutions, we can present them. I don't have the solution. I'm all ears if somebody like Patrick or Mike or other MTT guys have viable solutions for these particular problems. But I think we're reaching an impasse where the game is evolving in a way where strategy is so evolved and deep that it's crowding out what formerly would have been considered cheating.
Yeah. Not much else to say about that one.
That's my take on that. That's going to do it for us today. We are wrapping it up for the week as Guapo has major surgery tomorrow.
Right, I'm getting my twin removed.
Major surgery. He's getting a fatty lipoma removed. So best wishes to him. Everybody have a great weekend. The Tortoise will be back next week. We lose Landon to Costa Rica. And we're going to have some friends call in, probably hear from Barber. We're going to hear from Caitlin Komeski and a few others. So be sure to tune in for that. We'll be back to 5 days a week next week. We'll see you guys all then.
Peace.